So starting with the Cade stuff, I think a good starting point with this, and this was something that you have brought up, Prod, was the fact that it really feels like the Rockets are almost like leveraging them, they're basically putting themselves in a really, really good position as far as negotiations are concerned with the Pistons, because everything is pointing to the fact that the Rockets want like Jalen Green. Like it feels that way. The consensus coming out of big name accounts like KOC, Shams, the consensus for the fans is that Jalen Green is the guy, and because of that, right? If Jalen Green is also the other guy for the Pistons besides Cade that they might be remotely interested in, then it kind of effectively eliminates the Cavaliers and maybe even the Raptors, whatever, from potentially trading up, even if they have an enticing offer, because at that point, Detroit would miss out on their two guys, Cade and Jalen Green.
I think it's really interesting, the timing of it all, because if you realize, like, talks about the Rockets actually being really interested in Cade were really mild up until this week. I think the timing is really good that we focused on Green so much, or like the rumors focused on Green so much for 2 weeks, and all of a sudden the rumors are, okay, the Rockets are interested in Cade. Like, the timing lines up so well. And the other thing is, when I posted that on Reddit, I think that's where you saw it, and someone pointed out that the day the Rockets being interested in Cade rumors came out, some rumors about Detroit all of a sudden being really interested in Mobley surfaced as well. So I don't know if that was some counter rumoring or something. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about Cade is that he's Cade. I mean, 6'8" point guard, elite passer, incredible shooter, good defender, very smart player. Like, it's just, I don't, like, I've seen a lot of people ask why trade up. Like, if they don't want Cade, then just let them take Green. You get Cade with the second pick. Didn't have to give up anything.
I hate that.
And,
I
well,
hate that so
that would,
much.
I mean, that would be the dream scenario for sure. Like, if I knew that the Pistons are taking Green no matter what, and that Cleveland won't trade with them, then sure. But like, it's very possible that one, we don't know whether they will take Cade or Green if it came down to it. Or if Cleveland could trade with them, because maybe the Rockets are interested in Mobley, who is also part of this discussion. And you just don't know if maybe they have a slight preference towards Cade. Maybe like they have them roughly equal, so they would take Cade otherwise, but I would try to get a slight asset, like a couple of first round picks, and then get Green. Then they would rather do that. Like,
Exactly. It's all
I,
about the posturing, and if they
yeah,
have those two guys, you know, vetted kind of equally as far as their rankings, in the Pistons' eyes, then why wouldn't you want to extract all that extra value? And the Pistons are doing their due diligence by basically looking the part as if they are going to go with Cade number one overall, because it's basically a giant bluffing game. It's Rafael Stone trying to call Troy Weaver's bluff, Weaver trying to call Stone's bluff, but ultimately there's a price that makes sense and a price that doesn't make sense for a trade up. And there's like kind of a precedent set there on what it looks like in previous years, for like the trade up, Boston, Philly, Atlanta, Dallas. And I believe the secondary picks that were included in each of those trades fell, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe they fell like in the early teens, right? So
10 and 14, yes, they were
there
put,
we go.
yeah.
Yeah, so that's why we circle back to the Indiana rumors, where the Rockets and Pacers had the discussions about the number 13 overall pick. Because if the Rockets are able to scoop the 13th overall pick, then suddenly you're looking at packaging number 2 and number 13, and maybe past that, the future first that Detroit owes to Houston, the super heavily protected one. and then that to me is still the floor of or the maximum for the package. I wouldn't go past that just to trade up one spot. I don't think the gap between Cade and Jalen Green is that insurmountable, at least in my eyes.
Yeah, and like something I see like coming up on Twitter a lot is there is a world, and some people seem to not realize this was so. I think this is so obvious. There is a world where Detroit still likes Cade over Green, but if you can overwhelm them with an offer that makes up for the difference, they would still take that deal. Like them dealing the first pick doesn't mean they don't want Cade whatsoever. Like I see a lot of people saying, "Oh, if they want Green, they should just take him number one, and we shouldn't give up any assets." Like that's not how it works. But in relation to what you said about the Pacers stuff,
I do want to jump in and just chime in. There is one more thing to consider, right? Is each pick down the pecking order, right, gets paid less money. So not only there's also a monetary incentive there, where if the Pistons were to select Green overall, then they're paying him number one overall pick money. Whereas
but it's like 1 million, I think. I'm not completely sure.
Yeah,
but
I don't think it's a big.
it's not a gigantic consideration, but it's still a consideration to at least throw out there.
Jackson, Thielen, maybe you have forgotten, but Thielen is our owner, not Detroit. So I don't know how much that's gonna matter. To me, the argument
that was low hanging fruit. That was mean.
Yeah. The difference, I'm checking it out right now. It's 900K the first year, and it's pretty much 900K all the way till the fourth year, between pick 1 and pick 2 in 2021, 2022. But
so to me, the argument about trading up, not trading up, is that at least for me, like I wouldn't offer much more than 213 and the Piston pick, like Jackson said. And I'm assuming like we use 23 and Gordo and House to get 13. But that's what I would do if we're trading Mobley for him. But in my eyes, like it's just so much easier to compare Green and Cade because they also play a very similar position and they have similar strengths, except that Cade is like kind of better at everything than Green other than scoring. Like the jump shot, Cade projects to be a better shooter. The passing, it's so clear to me. I mean, obviously, they're not at the same level of prospects, but to me, it's a little like LeBron versus Melo. In that LeBron and Melo are similar scoring wise, but the passing, the defense.
That's a really good comparison. I brought that up the other day. That draft is so close to this one. Like it's crazy. Like Dwayne Wade and Jalen Green, like Bosh and Mobley, LeBron and Cade. I mean, not to the same level, but it's really close. Yeah. Like prototypes.
What happens if Mobley is actually the Darko Milicic of this draft?
Yeah, that's possible too.
I'm sorry, Itamar. I had to rain on your parade.
So just to me, the difference is so big when I'm just comparing these two prospects that I'm willing to offer like a lot. I'm willing to offer the house. Like you saw the four first round picks that I offered on Twitter in addition to 2 for 1, and some people went crazy. But like to me, I would on a different note, I would rather offer 4 first than next year's pick or 2023 pick because late first are good, but they're like just late first. But and so to me, Cade is so much better than Green, and it's easy to see. But with Mobley, because they have different strengths, because they're also kind of similar in how well-rounded they are, and how Mobley is a big and that has its advantages and disadvantages. It's a little harder for me to compare, and I also would not be willing to offer as much. So I think it depends on what the Rockets. Well, obviously, it depends on what do they think. Like we've seen reports that they have him as the clear number 1 guy, and it seems like we know right now. Okay, they have Cade 1, and then a tier below they have Green and Mobley in some order. we have to remind ourselves we don't really know what the Rockets have. Like, we're all just guessing, even the sources guys, like, we don't know. But, I mean, just the argument for trading for Cade is that he's so good that you might not never be in the top three again, like for the next couple of years, even if you don't have great seasons. You never know how the lottery gods will shake out. So once you're here, maybe you should just go all in on this draft, get the best prospect possible, and just go.
Yeah, and about what you said, the valuation. You in your trade. I think it was the Pistons pick, which is a lot more valuable to the Pistons than it is to us. It was 23, 24, and the best out of Brooklyn or Miami next year, right? That was
Yes,
it. The, the,
yeah,
the
that was
point
it.
I, the point I want to bring up about that is in any trade package, the Pistons pick will have to go back. Like that. That's probably something they won't allow to not happen. So think of it like this: in many of these trades, people bring up, oh, maybe they want a our pick in 2022 or 2023, and people hear that and they think about it like, okay, we're probably handicapping us one of our rebuilding years, but on the other hand, we get Cade. The thing is, I wouldn't trade or would you trade our pick next year or in 2023 for three late first round picks? I wouldn't. I don't think anyone would, or especially after what happened this season where we suffered so much. Like it's like we have so many small assets or projected late picks that if you can consolidate many small assets into one big asset, I think you should almost always do it unless the valuation is that far apart. And in a trade up for Cade, I think that's a great way to consolidate some smaller assets into one big asset. That's probably one of the best prospects in recent memory coming out of the draft.
That's a great point. I mean, the whole point to accumulating these assets for Stone, right, is to be able to make a play for somebody that they value, either as a franchise cornerstone, or I mean, the conversations that we've had throughout a large majority of the season has been, centered around, oh well, they're sitting on all these, Nets draft picks. So when the next, when Luka gets pissy in Dallas, or when the next upset star wants out, the Rockets are in a great position, only dwarfed by OKC, but past that, they're in a great position to be able to make a really enticing offer to, another team to get their next quote unquote their guy that way. So there isn't really necessarily a reason to be stingy, I guess, with the assets if you're looking at Cade, if they value Cade that highly. I just also think you're looking at 3 to 4 other guys at the top of this draft who, again, Cade edges them out like by a little bit. And again, I don't think the gap is that gigantic between Cade and the other prospects to where I wouldn't necessarily go super overboard. At least based on the information that I have, right? The film that I've seen and everything. Maybe the intel for the Rockets is different, right? Because that's the other thing to remember and to keep in mind is they're going to have access to be able to vet these guys, to be able to, talk to their high school coaches, college coaches, family members, whatever, right? To understand these guys, to their core versus just, pouring over hours of film on social media or on YouTube.
Yeah,
And there's a different level of
sorry.
access there. No, go ahead.
I think like I used to think that the difference wasn't that big, but then because I usually like where the Rockets were trying to get a start, so you usually think ceiling. But I think that the real difference comes when you think about floor. If you think about the floor of Cade and the other two guys, I think that the difference is huge. Like I don't think there's a way where Cade is less than an All-Star, and I think there's a very real world where the other two can flop. I think it's a lot more likely for the other two to flop than Cade is. I also think, like, I know I'm the only guy that cares about this, but listening to their interviews and listening to them talking about the game, it feels like Cade has the higher IQ, like by a landslide. Like you hear him talking, and he talks about these concepts himself that in most other interviews, like the guy interviewing is the one that has to bring them up for them to talk about them. I feel like when you think about the floor difference, the IQ, and then the smaller ceiling difference that Cade has, I think it's still a really big gap. And I think even if we do trade the Pistons pick, which won't be great for us if we don't trade it to them, like it's more valuable to them than it is to us. If we trade our 2 late picks this year, they're just late picks. And if we trade I don't know, Miami's pick next year, we'd still be left with our pick next year, which will be probably great because we'll be bad. Our pick in 2023, Milwaukee's pick, and all of the Brooklyn picks. We still have all of that to try and get another start if need be. So we're really just getting rid of the scraps of our arsenal of picks in the trades that Itamar proposed. Like, I know it looks like 4 first-round picks, but those are really, like, shitty first-round picks, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I mean, also, I just want to say that, like, I don't know, Motown Noah, I don't know if you guys know him. He's basically the best Pistons fan out there. And he probably would take this deal. So, just a side note. But to me, it really obviously depends on how much you value Cade over the others. And if you do believe he's the real thing and that there's a gap, then the Rockets are just in a prime position to trade a lot just to go all in on him. Because the point of really getting all those picks is either to draft one of those generational players yourself or to go all in and trade for a star once the team is good. Now, if you can, like the Rockets, I think they have 28 picks, first round picks over the next 7, 8 years, the second most in the entire NBA. They can afford to go all in. They can afford to trade some first and be all right and still be like in a very good position pick wise compared to other teams in the NBA. So if you do believe Cade is the real thing, which I do, and you think like the floor and his ceiling is just by far the highest in the draft, then I think it's like you gotta counter the choice with an offer, and maybe obviously you don't start with their absolute best offer. You try to see what's their level of interest, whether it's possible to even get Cade without trading basically anything, and all of that. But if it comes down to it, like I don't see why, if you believe Cade is the real thing, then you wouldn't be willing to part with some mid-level asset to secure like one of the best prospects to come recently. And I say that even with how much I love Mobley and how good Green is, because I watched both guys play full games and they're insane, really. But Cade is just a wild deal. So if he's available, like I think you gotta consider.
And you hit the nail on the head there. At the end of the day, it's you don't want to over leverage yourself from the beginning, right? So as far as the negotiations go, I just don't think Stone doesn't want to. He basically doesn't want to give up more than he has to if he thinks there's a legitimate opportunity there for the Pistons to effectively pass on Cade. Now that doesn't mean he gets cute and plays hardball and says, "Oh, I'm only going with the whatever the Jackson level package, the Indiana 13 and one of the other 23, 24 or the future Pistons pick, right? Whatever combination of potential picks, he doesn't get super concrete on that, but I do think that if you're looking at it from Detroit's angle, that they're going to be incredibly aggressive about asking for, potentially some of the future firsts from Brooklyn. Like if I'm Detroit, that's what I'm asking for. Like if I'm trying to get this trade to happen, I'm going to be asking for one of those far off distant future firsts from Brooklyn because that is a juicy potential pick down the line.
I think I agree with you there. Like, I'm really only up to forgiving like the 4 or 5 first round picks that Itamar talked about if they are these first round picks. Like if we're talking about the Brooklyn picks, I put a limit on the first round picks we gave up to like 3, including the Detroit and our own. Like, I think I'm only willing to give up this massive, that looks massive amount of picks because they're late ones. Like, if they ask for Brooklyn picks, I'm willing to give them number 2. I'm willing to give them their own pick, and I'm willing to give them one of the Brooklyn picks. That's not a swap, because the swaps we can't give up because they might be our own picks if our picks better. Let's not forget about that. So if they ask for those picks, I'm only willing to give up one. If they ask for 2022 or 2023, I'm pulling out of the deal because I don't think the difference is big enough to warrant the possibility of us being bad again, which is really likely, and being in the same situation we were in this year, heading into the lottery in the next 2 years. Like, I think that's the worst that can happen. But I think that's my limit. Like, I have your limit, the Jackson limit, if they include Brooklyn picks. If we can make it happen with just the late ones in their own, my limit is like 5 or something.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because we all agree, I think, on this subject. Like, we all think Cade is the best. Like, by we all, I mean we three. We agree that Cade is the best prospect in the draft. That if the Rockets get him, they should try to like see what's up with Detroit to offer a certain package. I think we also agree on the return. Like, personally, I only agree on what package we should offer if it's Mobley, but uh, I think we agree on a lot of this. So pretty interesting. I didn't really expect uh, for us to be exactly on the same page. So
I mean, I could just be different just to be an asshole, but no. Like, I mean, it's pretty easy to be on the same page when it comes to Cade. Like, that's the one uniting factor here, is because he is still a cut above the other prospects, right? And there's a reason for that. There's a reason he was touted and still is touted as the, largely consensus number one guy, unless you've got, some rando draft guys out there who, for whatever reason, drop him lower on their board because they want to be different. But we got we got some speaker requests. So before we transition to another topic, let's get some people up here. We got Madison first. What's up, Madison?
Hey, how's it going, man? Oh, thank God I got a chance to speak, man. I've been following all you guys and listening to all y'all stuff, and y'all are great. And I really wanted to have an opportunity to talk to you guys about this stuff. But yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, of
Can
course.
you?
What you got? Yeah, we got you. What you
Okay.
got for us?
Well, I guess we can start with the whole Cade trade up scenario. I believe that the trade up, just you should have a strict price. You should have your price for Cade. I do think 4 picks is way too steep, and the 2022 pick should not be the pick. Like, we should keep that one. I mean, if we get Cade or not, if he becomes whoever he's supposed to be, if he reaches his ceiling, we still will be a lottery team next year. I think that should definitely be off the table, and I don't think the gap between Cade and Green Cade and Mobley and Green is that big of a difference for us to give up 4 picks. I think there should be a price; it should be set, and we should follow that and follow the process. I think we all believe that Cade, Green, and Mobley have the potential to be superstars in this league. So I think, if you believe that and you wholeheartedly believe that, then we shouldn't be giving that much up to get Cade. And Cade is often talked about as a perfect prospect. And although I think he is the best prospect in the draft, he does have holes in his game. The lack of athleticism, the lack of space creation, and also that stuff is glaring holes. I think those things he can overcome because he's 6'8", right? And he still can shoot very well, but they're not to be overlooked. He's not a perfect prospect, right? And like Luka is one of the players he's compared to who also has a lack of athleticism, but he's nowhere near as crafty as Luka, right? And I still think Luka's pretty much a better passer than him as well. So I think we should temper those expectations on Cade. I think we should definitely explore them. I think he definitely is the best prospect in the draft, but I do not think the gap is as large as you guys, or more so like Ilmar is insinuating.
I think about you brought up a good point that I wanted to bring up too. Thank God you reminded me. I wanted you guys to I'm not that good at scout. I'm not as good at scouting as probably Damaris. I wanted him to talk about this. That is what you just brought up. His difficulty creating space, and in college he didn't need that because I mean he was hitting shots with hands on his face. But I think in the NBA he might get blocked a bit more.
Right.
But on the other hand, I think you're underestimating Cade a little bit. I was having this conversation today. I had a friend that was comparing him to Chris Middleton in the way that he can shoot from anywhere and even contest it, and when he's hot, it doesn't even matter. I brought up Tatum as a comparison, and why is that? Because I think, unlike Middleton, Cade has a lot of moves to create to get to the rim without even when he's stopped before he gets there. I was I was watching some highlights, and you can see when there's a defender between him and the basket, he can post you up. He has a plethora of post moves to get by you, and he has the vision to also to pass out of the post if he gets double teamed. And I think something that's really underrated because of his turnover and assist numbers is just how good of a passer he is. He's really next level. The reads he makes and the little fakes he does, I was just mind blown looking at it because I didn't look too much into him before the lottery, and after the lottery even less because I didn't want to get excited over nothing,
Right.
And I don't know. I fell in love with the fact that I don't think there's any way this guy can go wrong.
Yeah. I do
I
want to
mean,
say. Oh, I'm sorry.
no,
I,
go
I,
ahead. Like,
I just wanted to just point out. I do want to say. I do not underestimate Cade. I think he'll be a superstar in this league. I actually think all three will be fine. Right. I'm just saying that he isn't the perfect prospect, and I didn't even talk about how he needs to tighten his handle. That's another big thing. He has problems. But I believe he's going to be a superstar. I definitely do.
I mean, I think his lack of burst is the only thing really holding him back right now from being a absolute certain superstar like already. And the handle also, like you said, needs to get better. I do think the space creation thing is a little overblown, and he's like, I don't know if he's ambidextrous, but I've seen some of his highlights. Just look at random highlights. He finishes tough floaters with his left hand. He does some ridiculous things that you just gotta laugh and move on because some of the plays are just unreal. To me, he's so smart, skilled
Yeah.
at 6'8", that yeah, I mean, if he had Jalen Green's burst, he'd be the greatest prospect of all
Right. He'd
time,
be
over
LeBron.
LeBron or something.
He'd be LeBron.
But yeah, he doesn't have that. But just that's why, I'm talking about Cade blushing because he's so good at so many things that I mean, he's been the talk at least on draft Twitter. He's been the talk of this draft since before senior year in high school even because he's just he's very good.
Mhm.
I feel a lot more confident about him than I do about Mobley or Green
Mhm.
uh, because of how he's really good at many things already, and I think it projects to be clearly greater than from day one. So, yes, he's not a perfect prospect, and it's a good point that should be brought up because he's not LeBron as a prospect. He's not
Mhm.
uh, Anthony Davis exactly as a prospect either. But I don't think he's too far away from these guys, and I don't think there are too many guys from the 2000 that you take over him. Just thinking off the top of my head, maybe Zion, AD. I don't know. Maybe I'm forgetting someone, but I don't know
I
who really else is so clearly above him as a
I
prospect
I
at least.
wouldn't even take Zion over him. Um, I think it really says something that when we're talking about Green, we're talking about his defense, about how he needs to work on his playmaking. And when we talk about Mobley, we talk about how he needs to develop a jump shot and he needs to put on some weight, and we talk about all these things that they need to do, like, or when we're talking about Green, we say, okay, this guy is a really good scorer, and that's what he'll guarantee to be in the NBA. At least that he's going to be. When we talk about Mobley, you talk about how insane of a defender he is, and how versatile of a defender he is, and how that is most likely going to translate to the NBA too. When you talk about Cade, instead of talking about his strengths, you mainly have to talk about the small things he's not excellent at, and I think that really shows the difference. Like when you talk about Cade, you're nitpicking what's wrong with him, and when you talk about the others, you're just talking about what's good with them. Like, I don't know if I'm getting my message across here, if this
No,
makes sense.
I definitely get that. I think there's not enough nitpicking of Cade, if you ask me. But that's the only point I make. Like I never hear people talking about his weaknesses ever. You know what I mean? Like ever. You hear about we've had this argument between Green and Mobley, and we picked both of those prospects apart, and then Cade comes into the question, and there's no real in-depth analysis, the type of analysis you have to go through before making these type of decisions, right? And it's all just to make us better in evaluating these prospects. And so that's why I just was like, hey, I think we should talk about, some of the things that he needs to improve. But it's the gap. Honestly, I think that the other three prospects have superstar potential. I think K definitely has the higher floor, right? So I think his floor is a all-star, a starting point guard on a championship team. And I think that's how we should evaluate prospects. Like, will they play meaningful minutes in the playoffs, right? And I definitely think he's the best prospect. I agree with you guys on that. I just think that we should temper how much we give up for K when we have other amazing prospects as well,
I
right?
think you're definitely right about that, in which like we don't talk about his weaknesses enough, and I think that's maybe a bit because since the lottery, we dove into the number two guys so much that
Hmm.
nobody really paid attention. So if probably I don't know if you asked me right now, I couldn't go as in depth about Cade as I did about the other two. So
Right.
so it's probably just a bit of that too that the reason we're not talking about what's wrong with him as much.
Hmm. Yeah. And yeah, no, I mean, that's just how I feel about the trade scenario. Do you guys have time for me to kind of present my case for who I would prefer at number two? I don't know. I don't know if you guys are trying to get somebody else in.
We've got some more people waiting to talk, but go
Okay.
ahead and drop us. No, go ahead and drop us really quick what you want to do for number two.
Okay. So no, number two, I think we should definitely go Green, and it's just I think both of them are amazing prospects, and we can do this all day. But you have to go for the prospect that you believe in with the highest ceiling, right, and the best chance of reaching that ceiling. And I think Green really, I don't know what Green's ceiling is. And the Green people have been comparing Green to Kobe and Jordan and all these super great prospects, and I hate that. I hate that. But honestly, I've never seen a prospect with this level of shot creation at this age. The amount of separation this guy gets on his shots, this guy's going to be unstoppable, and he's going to be unstoppable very soon, right? I think he'll be Levine level, right? That's one of the comps they give him because they just don't want to go over the top, right? And so, but I think he can be Levine in 3-4 years, right? And so imagine if this guy is Levine at 22, right? How much better, how much more room for growth he has after that. Also, everything checks out in his background as far as work ethic, how he wants to get better, and how he's shown improvement over time, right? And so that's one of the big things I look for in prospects. Do they get better over the course of the season? I think Green will be so much better after day one in the NBA and when it's his final game, right? You've seen the improvement in defense. You see the type of improvement that matches up with the work ethic, right? And so when I talk about why I choose Green, it's because I believe in him more than Mobley, right? And I believe in him more than Mobley because he's shown the aptitude to get better, and he also has this elite athleticism where he's literally floating in the air, and that is Jordan-esque. You know what I mean? Like people aren't going to be able to do that. Although I do believe Mobley is going to be a great player, but I'm not too sure about hit that alpha mentality, right? I think this guy just has a skyrocket defensive IQ, and I don't even believe I think he's mobile, but I don't think he's like Chris Bosh mobile. I just think he has such a high defensive IQ. He knows how to use his length so well that he won't fail. He'll be immediately a great defender. Uh, uh, he'll be immediately a great defender, and then when he gets stronger, he'll just be elite, right? It's just I don't know if I believe he'll be an alpha, and even if he reaches his ceiling, which is what AD, right? AD couldn't lead a team to the playoffs, man. Like you know what I mean? It doesn't equal winning. You know what I mean? And that also that notion about how wings are more valuable, and that's the reason why. Because in the fourth quarter, when it's winning time, right, we're not going to throw it down low to Mobley, right? We're just not going to do that. You know what I mean? Because that's just not how offenses are played right now, especially Silas's offense.
I mean, I think like the uh, the work ethic point, I don't like it to be honest, because I think Green has talked about it. He's great with media and all of that. Like, and I don't think we should penalize Mobley for it. Like, who's the last prospect to be selected at the top of the draft and not have that mentality and not work so hard on his game? Like, I think it's Marcus Chris from when 2016, and like it's been 5 drafts now, and I don't remember a single example of an absolute top pick who hasn't had elite work ethic.
Bagley.
And
Whoa,
uh,
Ben Simmons?
I mean,
Ben
I think
all
he,
Simmons,
right,
I
yeah.
Ben
think he has,
Simmons,
I think,
Josh
yeah, Ben
Jackson.
I
Simmons
think he
maybe.
has,
All right,
I think he has the work ethic. I'm talking about that win the game at the end, that alpha, that dominance, the takeover game aspect to him, right? I think he
I
has good
mean,
work ethic.
look,
Yeah, you can't be where you are without it, right?
I
Wiggins
mean,
too.
yes, like he's not going to, maybe he'll hit a shot, like maybe Jalen will hit a shot like Devin Booker hit last night, and then his
Mhm.
lob pass to Ayton will be blocked by Mobley. Like, and it's like
Yeah,
there are multiple ways to affect the game in
right.
crunch time.
Hmm.
And when Mobley, the way he can cover like at least half the floor, like on defense, I think it's gonna be insanely valuable. And to me, other than the last 2 minutes debate, I just really struggle seeing Green be more than like Bradley Beal right now or
Hmm.
Devin Booker right now. And they're really good players, but like scorer type guys who are fine defensively, they're just not top 10 players like in this NBA, really.
Hmm.
Like they have to be really good at something else. And to me, I see with Mobley what he can be. Like, yes, Anthony Davis didn't win anything in New Orleans, but his teams were bad and the ceiling was really high because he's a really good ceiling raiser. I mean, to me, if like I think about it sometimes this way, if I'm taking Mobley here in this draft, I can build a team however I want. Like I can get another center if I want because Mobley can shoot and pass and guard wings easily.
Right.
So his the fit is great there. I can get another guard, I can get another wing, I can get any position that I want because he's so versatile at everything and he enhances his teammates really well. With Green, like there's KPJ and him. All right, so your guard is set. You need some defensive minded guys because maybe they don't hit defensively as much. You need some probably playmaking from other positions, maybe defense from your backup guard spot. Like to me, the the possibilities with Mobley are just so endless. Like when it comes to building a winner, than with building a Green that you see like Devin Booker was in the finals, which is great, and he has Chris Paul, and he's been phenomenal these playoffs. But also Bradley Beal and Zach LaVine are great scorers, and Beal put up nice numbers in the playoffs, but they're at home right now, and it wasn't really close because their scoring is really good and it's really valuable and it's good, but like I mean they're just so much more, and they're just I don't think they're at that level where they could impact the game if they're not scoring maybe. And I think Mobley is one of the few guys like Cade who could because of the other skill set that he has on both ends of the floor.
Definitely agree. I mean, I think that you made like really good points about building the team around Mobley. I think it would be a lot easier to build a team around Mobley. I definitely agree with that. But I do think that Green has the potential to be a great defender and impact the game on that. I think he has. I think he's shown that he's improved over the course of the G League season, especially on his off-ball defense. And I think he can be a great off-ball player as well as on-ball. So, but I definitely agree. I think you made great points. And before I go, I just want to say, guys, check out some Garuba. If Green is the pick, Garuba is looking like he's going to fall, and Garuba has Draymond Green level defensive potential. I think he'd be perfect next to Christian Wood, and he'll provide some win now play, right? And with the amount of picks we have, I think he'd be a great option. I was kind of sad to see him not on Itamar's polls.
Because
I
I
think
want to.
it's
I
too
have
high.
him I have him 11th. Like he's
Yeah.
one of the guys that if he falls down to like 13, and if he falls down, the Rockets can trade for him, like using 23 and 24 and house. I would do it like immediately. Only reason he wasn't in the polls is because I think there's no way he falls that high. That's what like the only
You had
reason.
You had Keon Johnson. No, that was the crazy one. But Garuba now, if you look at the mocks going on right now, Garuba has fallen. And by the way, guys, between Garuba, Jalen Johnson, all the bigs, the first round bigs, two of them are going to be available at 23 and 24. If you look at how it's so many great prospects, two of them are going to fall. We're going to be able to pick between one of those great bigs at 23 and 24
I
that we
think
that we believe are lottery talents.
I think that I don't think they will, because I was doing some mock drafts with Don the other day, and there are so many teams ahead of us that need bigs. The Thunder have no big now. The Kings need a big because they likely can't bring back Holmes. The Hornets need a big because Cody Zealler's gone and he wasn't very good to begin with. The Spurs need a big because Aldridge is gone. There's a lot of teams that need bigs like before the draft gets to us.
Mhm.
But talking about Garuba, like you said, Itamar's been trying to talk me into Garuba for a while, and I just can't, man. When
Yeah,
when
I
when
know.
someone can't shoot, that's a huge red flag for me. Because
Yeah.
one of the things I'm the most worried about is us becoming the Orlando Magic 2.0 and spending all of our picks in uber athletic wings and power forwards, and they hoping they could learn to shoot and them never learning to shoot like that. That's like I'm probably exaggerating it, but in my mind that's a
Yeah.
huge like no
Just
for
the
me.
argument for me is like imagine Jay Sean take Jay Sean, make him 6'8", bam.
Right. Right.
that's
Right.
that's
No,
a lot of it for me. Just say to the about the polls. I'm just saying like one quick sentence is that I compiled the results and like I have the rankings of what Rocket Twitter prefers. So once you guys
mm,
wanna move
Yeah,
on
we're
for
we're
Cade or yeah, we
we're
can
gonna
like just saying it for later.
let let's dive into that in a second. But we got a bunch of people who have been waiting to talk.
sorry.
So no, Madison, you're good.
I'm
This
sorry.
is great. No, you're good, man. No,
Don't be
you don't have to
sorry, dude. We
apologize for
wanted you to
anything.
stay.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, it was great conversation. But I want to give some other people a chance to get up on the stage. But we appreciate it, Madison.
All right. Thank you, guys.
All right, who's next on the list? Oh, hello. What's up, Roosh? All right, is he not going to talk?
He's muted for me.
He's
You
not
got
muted for me.
you got to unmute my guy.
This is the same
Let him
problem
mute and
Don Knock
unmute.
had the other day. I think you need to
Oh,
restart your
Yeah,
app for it to work.
All right, knock it down, or like, yeah, if you can hear it, Roosh, if you can hear us, like, kill it and bring it back. Watch, he's gonna disappear. 3, 2, 1.
Almost.
Damn. All right, well, we're gonna go to the next person. I'm gonna bump Roosh back down. Oh no, hang on. Let's do that, and then remove. Come back in a second, my guy. All right, who's next? Mont. Let's get Mont up here. What's up, Mont?
Hi, how y'all doing?
What's up?
Doing good,
What's up?
man.
All right, I'm a Pistons fan. I know it's probably a little bad blood going on between us right now, but
There's no bad blood. We're just having discussions, man.
I'm talking about on Twitter. Rockets and Pistons fans are in a war right now. So I want to apologize on behalf of all the crazy Pistons fans just saying anything. But I just want to talk to you guys about trade proposals and everything, and what do y'all think is too much to move up to get Cade? And I want to talk to y'all about what I know was going on with the Pistons. So what do you guys think is like a fair offer or anything?
I think getting 13 and another and like your own pick back. I think that's kind of fair because you look at the other returns. Like we could do the late first offer that I offered. We could discuss this one, but it seems like guys aren't really in favor of that. And the 13 plus, like you look at the Kings pick, it was supposed to be really good. It was 14. The the Sixers traded the Sixers traded to the Celtics. The Mavs pick they traded to the Hawks was 10th. So like 13 is not that much far behind, even behind the projections of where the pick was supposed to land. Plus your own pick, which allows you which gives you a lot of flexibility, the ability to make trades, and like and that. You can take Daniel House if you want, like sure, but I feel like that's kind of a fair offer because it does seem like the Pistons are high on Cade, but they're not. Like they're definitely considering other guys. I feel confident enough in what we've seen to say that they're considering like other guys, giving them a real shot, asking them whether they make their bed in the morning, like very important stuff. And because of that, I do feel like one more lottery pick, your own pick back. And with two, that seems like kind of a fair offer.
What I know so far is that our GM Troy Weaver and our vice chairman, they both want Cade, and the rest of our front office is high on Green over Cade. So it's really a toss up right now. I think the Pistons just want to get the Rockets and the Cavs in a bidding war because I think it's similar to the Philly and Boston situation where Boston traded back, still got the guy they wanted, and Philly moved up to one. That's what I really think the Pistons are. They're probably trying to get the Rockets and the Cavs to overpay, and they'll get Green at 2 or 3 or whatever. That's what I think the Pistons' plan is, but. They could just be wanting Cade. I really don't know.
And then the other one, which is the one that a lot of people tend to not. You say yourself, right? If the rest of the front office is extremely high on Green, right? They could really just want Green, and they're just trying to extract as much positive value out of feigning Cade as possible. Even as crazy of an idea as that is, that's how you play the game. If Green is actually their guy, or on their metrics, their rankings, whatever, if they're that close to each other, then you don't just say, oh, well, we like Green, we're going to take him number 1 and let Cade fall to number 2. No. You try to get as much value back as possible. And the one thing that I keep coming back to is I keep coming back to that damn first rounder that the Rockets own from Detroit, where I think, like, not having access to that and having your picks tied up for, the foreseeable future until that pick potentially conveys, which I don't see it conveying anytime soon. I kind of think if you're the Pistons and you're thinking, okay, we're going to get Cade, we're going to try and get back on track and start, building around him and all that. It puts you in kind of a stranglehold where if you're like 2 or 3 years away and you haven't quite made a jump or enough of a jump to force that pick to convey to Houston, to where then you're tied up, you're like looking to make roster improvements, and you're like, okay, well, damn, we can't facilitate any firsts in any trades to bolster our roster because Houston still owns that pick. This is as good of an opportunity as any for them to be able to get that pick back.
And like Itamar just said, what he thinks is a fair offer. I'm expecting to hear your fair offer. If you were GMing the Pistons right now and you were negotiating with the Rockets, what's the least you'd want for a trade to happen?
See, I don't know because I value Cade a lot more than I value Green. But from the Pistons standpoint, Cade is like 1A and Green is 1A.5 for them. Like it's not even 1B. They value Green almost as much as they value Cade. But for me, I'd probably say 2. If you can get the Indy pick, I would like that. Our first back, and I don't know after that. Like I want to say another pick, but then that might be an overpay. But it's still Cade. Like he's the best prospect in the draft. I don't really think it's close. But from a Pistons standpoint, they do think it's close. So I really think they just want to get Cleveland and Houston in a bidding war. I think they'll be fine walking away with Jalen Green, but they want to get Houston and Cleveland to overpay for him.
Listen, how much of them lacking Green close to Cade do you think is because Cade said in the interview that it doesn't make his bed in the morning?
I don't know what that was about. I really don't.
That was so weird. Like,
yeah, I just know our vice chairman and our GM want Cade. Everyone else wants Green. So it's
Hey,
really,
look, man, I'll make Cade's bed for him. Like, shoot, I'll drive down to downtown Houston and take care
Trust
of
me,
that.
our Pistons, like, we're livid right now. Like, Pistons fans don't even understand why they're even taking offers on Cade. Like, it's Cade. I understand he isn't perfect, but he's Cade. Like, it's not many holes in his game, especially for him. Like, at his age, Cade is 19 years old and can play with his offhand. How many rookies can come into the league and just dominate with their offhand? Like, that's just not something you see in every prospect.
I still think it could be just doing their homework and making sure there's not something completely overwhelming on the table that they're passing up to take Cade. Like,
yeah, that's true.
The responsible me, like the guy that doesn't want to get his own heart broken, just keeps that in the back of his mind as a last resort. They're probably just doing their homework. They're probably just seeing if we're offering them number 2 or pick next year, Christian Wood, KPJ, and Jason Tate. Like, I think the pessimist in me is thinking, they're just checking to see if they're not passing up on something.
Oh yeah, I do think they're probably just doing their due diligence, asking around the league, but I don't think Houston is going to overpay. They might catch Cleveland being desperate because it's Cleveland. They don't do anything right. They could catch Cleveland being desperate. Maybe they can catch OKC being desperate, but I don't
But see,
think they
here's
would
the
move all the way
problem.
back to 5.
Here's the problem, and I alluded to this earlier, and I think this is kind of where we're at, and it's kind of a stalemate at this point, is even if they do catch Cleveland being desperate, then you're suddenly staring down the barrel of Evan Mobley, not Jalen Green.
But see, I like
Because
Mobley over Green. I'm a Mobley person. Like I like Mobley over Green.
and that's amazing. But
Quality
I like
person.
from the Pistons front office though, they're looking right Cade or Green. So
Yeah,
at that point, why would they put themselves in a position where they're losing out on both of their targets?
yeah. See, that's what I was thinking. I was like, okay, let's say Cleveland does just give us Sexton in number 3, but now we're like, okay, you can't have Jalen Green and Colin Sexton because Sexton can't play point guard. He's just not
And
like the
Killian
playmaker at
Hayes.
that. Yeah, and Killian Hayes, I think eventually he's going to probably move to a 6-man role. The Pistons might try
Ooh.
to trade Grant to probably get Grant's
Already,
book night
damn.
or something. I mean, it's not set in stone, but let's say the Warriors feel like they want to just give us 14 for Grant or something, they might consider it. And who might be there? Book night. One of the Johnsons. What is it? Keldon Johnson. I'm not that good on the draft class.
Jalen
So
Johnson, I think.
yeah, the shooting guard. He might be
Oh no,
maybe.
that's Keon.
Davion Mitchell. He might be there. So you never know. But like, I think they just want to see who's going to overpay. And maybe OKC says, here goes Shea, because why not? It's OKC. They do things sometimes, like trade James Harden for Thabo Sefolosha. So you never know.
Would you do Cade for Shea straight up?
I feel like you would have to. Because I don't even think Shea has reached close to his ceiling. Like, Shea is really good. I think straight up, you probably have to. If you can get OKC to throw in one of the 500 picks they have, then sure. But Shea, the only thing about Shea is you have to pay him this summer, and I don't think the Pistons want to have big money on the contracts when they're rebuilding right now. But
Except
Shea's
for Jeremy
22
Grant.
years old.
Yes.
Well, Grant's only what, 20 million? I don't think that's that bad, and he's probably going to get moved. I see Grant being moved before his third year, anyway.
I mean, hopefully,
Yeah.
since you're rebuilding, yeah.
Yeah, I can see Grant being moved. But see, the thing about it don't make sense by me is the Pistons didn't want to pay Christian Wood, but then they go sign Grant, and that I really didn't understand that. That was
Yeah, I mean,
kind
I
of weird
think
to me.
the Pistons, like, they've made a couple, like, their front office thinks differently from the rest of the league, I'll say that. Like, I think the Isaiah Stewart pick, it was a really good pick, and it also was a pick, like, nobody kind of expected. Picking, like, signing Grant or letting Wood go and signing Plumlee. Uh, like, a lot of the things they do that are very unexpected. They do are very unexpected, and because of that, I think the Rockets are lucky. And Detroit got the first pick because who knows who they value, like, and why. Like, they clearly have a different train of thought than the rest of the league. But yeah, I think this sums it up pretty well. Like, I mean, I think it's good that the two Pistons fans I've talked to agree that there's a reasonable trade that the Rockets could offer the Pistons, where the Pistons might have to take it and let the Rockets draft Cade. So that just makes me very optimistic thinking about Cade, KPJ, KJ, and all of that, all of those C's to get like K's together. They're just awesome.
I'm so
And there's also the side from the Pistons angle where again that might just not be enough, right? Like we've talked about having the Rockets offer, and Madison brought up the great point of just basically coming up with, okay, what is your price point on Cade? How high are you willing to go? How much capital are you willing to give up for Cade? And then don't exceed that point. And if the Rockets or even the Cavs can't match that point, then there's a very real possibility where the Pistons are just like, yeah, we're just going to take Cade number one, and I can see both sides like
yeah, I
legitimately.
can definitely see. I will be absolutely pissed if we didn't take Cade and we traded back. But if we do get Cade, we get him. If we don't, I'll have to see how good the offer is. Like, to me, Cade is just like, he's going to be it. He has his problems, with the handle, the lack of burst, but Cade might be it. So I don't really see myself being happy with a trade back, unless you guys offer KPJ, because I love KPJ. I wanted him on the Pistons. I love KPJ. So it really just depends. I guess we'll see in the next 2 weeks what happens. But yeah, I think the Pistons are just waiting on the overpay.
I wanted to ask two things. First off, wait, am I hearing myself twice, or is this?
You're good.
Oh, I'm good. Okay. First, if the Rockets and the Pistons play chicken too long, and it gets to draft night, and the Pistons do take Cade, the Rockets do take Green, and do you think once the picks are made, that's set in stone that no trades will happen?
No, I definitely see something else still happening because, like you guys said, the Rockets have some ammo to still move up and get Indiana's 13. Maybe like we get to the 13th pick and Indiana wants to trade it and you guys
Yeah,
get it.
that's interesting.
Maybe Houston does offer the Green, the 13th pick and something else. So I don't think anything will be set in stone until after draft night because we seen what was it, Luca and Trey go trade for each other or something like that on draft night. So nothing is really going to be set in stone until after.
The other question I wanted to ask: did y'all see the? Apparently, Klay Thompson just said on IG Live, "How do I feel about the draft? Great, 2 auto picks. Don't come around too often. We call those assets in the business world, and business is booming." That sounds like someone who's looking to trade.
Yeah, like I said, maybe the Warriors do offer that 14 for Grant and they go small ball. Maybe they offer it to y'all for Wood. The Warriors have access to go get things and compete this year. Like, they can trade for a star, 7 and 14 for a team that's rebuilding and go win the West. Like, they have the ammo to do everything.
I never really expected the Warriors to make I expected them to make maybe one of these selections, but I definitely, especially because they punted last year and went Wiseman, and
Which I
I guess
hated.
you can't call it punting, but they could have easily cashed in the pick last year to get a more NBA ready player to put around Steph Curry and give him another guy for a playoff run, and maybe they would have actually had a playoff appearance, and not lost out in the play-in tournament had they done that. So I think there was definitely some hindsight 2020 looking at what they did last year, and now they're looking at the 7 and 14, and they're like, okay, we got to flip one, if not both of these picks to get some more help to bolster the lineup with ready to go NBA caliber guys right now, rather than a project or two that we're going to have to get up to speed who aren't going to be able to contribute, at least in a big way on the bigger stages.
Yeah, and they're hinting about it too. And I don't think they'll get a star this year. I really don't think anybody. If somebody shakes free, like if Damian Lillard shakes free, I think there's plenty better options out there than what the Warriors have to offer.
Also, Mont, I've got two other people that have been waiting in the wings for a minute now.
Oh yeah, of course.
I do want to get them pulled up, and because we still got to go over the poll stuff too. But yeah. I appreciate hearing the Pistons side of things. That was very insightful.
Yep, thanks for having us, and I hope this war between our fan bases stop on draft night. I hope you guys have fun with Green, even though I want y'all to take Mobley because he's better. But all right, man, thanks for having me.
Appreciate it, Mont.
Yeah, I mean, we spent the whole year rooting for the Pistons to win games, so we're kind of used to rooting for them.
All right. He's back. Is he working this time?
Hello. Can you hear me?
Holy shit, it happened.
There we go. God damn. What's good, baby?
What's up, man?
Man, I'm chilling.
How you doing, my guy?
I'm good, baby. I'm good. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. I've been listening to everyone speak. I think everyone's pretty much on point. I wanted to point out one thing, because I notice when we get into these discussions, right, we start thinking we're fans. So we start thinking from the perspective of fans. And I think sometimes it helps to try to put ourselves back in the driver's seat as if you are Rafael Stone in the front office and you're actually making a transaction, right? Like you're really negotiating the transaction, not saying, oh, it's worth this much, but you're actually like doing it. So I bring that up to say that precedent is really important. Okay. Anytime you're doing a high stakes, like business negotiation, precedent is important. People always point to precedent. So what are they going to point to, right? Obviously, Boston and Philly and Atlanta and Dallas, right? Which you've already covered. It was a first round pick. One of them, I think, was the 10th pick. And one of them was, I think, the 14th pick because, Sacramento did a little bit better than expected, right? So, in saying that, I think that I think anything beyond this hypothetical trade up for the 13th pick for the Pacers, anything beyond that sets a new precedent, right? Because that 13th pick plus the second pick is directly on track with the pick swaps that have happened in the last 5 years. Now, in addition to that, as you've covered, God damn it, as you've covered, Detroit probably really wants their pick back, especially because they're in rebuild mode, and if they're going to be wheeling and dealing, they're going to need to avoid the Stepien rule, obviously. So Houston has a clear advantage if they want to include, if they do the 13 and Detroit's pick. I think that goes very, very clearly over anything we've seen, and I think it sets a new precedent. Now, the other thing to consider is Rafael Stone is, a sophomore GM at this point? He's caught a shit ton of heat. Houston's front office has caught a shit ton of heat because we didn't keep the god himself, Karis LeVert, and because, they didn't take
my God.
They didn't take Ben Simmons, right? So they're conscious of this, and they pay attention to how they're discussed, how they're evaluated, all that stuff. So they're not going to want to go in with this Godfather offer unless it is absolutely necessary. Now, I think that Houston, this is just me guessing based on, the different pieces of information that I've put together, but I think Houston obviously values Cade as their number one. I think Stone's guy is Cade, but I also think Stone would be very happy with Green, and I think that the scouts that they brought in, as we saw today, right? There's a lot of analytics folks in Houston's front office, which I'm guessing is like the guys like Cole Zwicker, Ross Homan, whatever, the other guys that are high on Mobley. So, and again, I just want to remind everyone, this is an awesome position to be in. We are #blessed. But I say that to say, I don't think they're going to overpay. I don't think they're going to even mess around with overpaying. I don't think they're going to go beyond 213 and maybe that Detroit pick. Because if they do, it's a very clear new precedent. It's very clearly overpaying. And connecting all the dots of what I just said, they're not going to want to be judged harshly. And they're also going to be happy with whoever that they may or may not wind up with after Cade, being Green or Mobley. So,
I think.
I mean, just
you want to go or?
Go ahead.
Okay. I think what you said makes sense, but Stone doesn't strike me as the type of guy to care a whole lot about. Oh, okay. To care a whole lot about what the outside thinks, but
Troy Weaver too, I think.
I mean, his whole attitude about, I don't know, maybe I'm just judging too far, but his whole attitude about, I wasn't even watching the lottery, I don't know. I think he's a guy that believes in himself, maybe too much to care about that stuff. But I do think you bring an interesting point that I haven't thought about before. That's do you think it plays a factor in who they pick or how much they value someone? The fact that they could be a franchise guy, not from a basketball standpoint, but more from a business standpoint, a guy you can market. Cade has shown he's a guy who handles the media really well, who's the guy in his team. Green has shown the same thing. I know this is not what you were saying, but I think it's something I haven't thought about yet, that I wonder if that plays a role when you're deciding who you're going to pick. I don't know.
I mean, to me, I think that the difference is between, we can say that the Pacers pick, for example, if we even get it, I don't know, but that pick was 13th, and Sacramento's was 14th, and Dallas's was 10th. So you can see, you can look at it's all in the same neighborhood. So you can say, all right, that's similar return, but I think the difference is you didn't know how good that pick was going to be. Whereas if the Rockets trade for the Pacers pick, you know that 13. For example, the Kings pick, I think it was top 1 protected. So it could have been second or third. There was a realistic chance for it to be second or third. Dallas maybe not as much because also it's a trade from the 5th pick to the 3rd pick. But also there was the possibility there that the pick could finish get you a great prospect. And if you get 13, then it's just not going to be the same thing. So I do think that you have kind of to add the Piston pick, so it won't be so just too much precedent.
So,
but
keep going, sorry.
One last thing. I agree with you that I don't want to overpay or do something like that. It's just that, in my opinion, trading late first is something I can get by doing with something I'm much more willing to do than trading a lottery pick. So, for example, the trade offer that I posted on Twitter, 4 first, except for 2 is a lot, but 4 late first that I think those picks are very expendable because of how many the Rockets have. Just to me, I mean, if you look at it from would I rather trade that pick or would I rather offer what the Mavericks offer the Hawks? I would rather offer the 4 late picks than offer a top 5 protected 22 pick, for example. So I think that mostly the disconnect there is over not valuing those picks as much.
So I agree with you about the point that you raised where you say those other picks were unknown. The commodity was not known, and this one is. That's a good point. However, I think on the flip side of that, because those were, at least to my memory, maybe I'm wrong, someone remind me if I'm missing something, since those pick trades with Philly and Boston and Dallas and Atlanta were kind of new, and they were unknown, the fact that this one is known and the fact that it's in the same neighborhood circles back to the precedent argument, right? Because and this is the other component to consider. Is Detroit serious? Because if Detroit's not serious, none of this matters. The only way we're going to get the number one pick is if we overpay, if Detroit's not serious. However, if Detroit is serious, and the guy who was speaking before me was right, and they value Cade as, 1A, and the other guy, Jalen Green, as 1A, 0.5 or whatever he said, if that's true, then my gut tells me that it's not going to take much in terms of an overpay to actually make Detroit pull the trigger. Meaning that the fact that the commodity is known and that it's the 13, Rafael Stone can say, hey, look, man, we're talking all-stars in the league, Trae Young, Jason Tatum, Luka Doncic, and there was a 10th pick, there was a 14th pick, and I'm giving you the 13th pick. So what are we doing here? But it comes down to if Detroit's serious. And the other part I wanted to mention about that in terms of whether or not Detroit is serious is, and this is just me kind of guessing here, I don't have anything to really back this up with, I'm just kind of using logic. If they're actually torn, or actually, let me back up. If they really do want Cade and they're just waiting for a drastic overpay, I think it sends a really poor message to Cade to kind of dangle and play these games. I feel like when New Orleans had the first pick, we knew it was Zion. It wasn't like, we're entertaining offers and maybe we'll take Ja Morant because we value them very closely. It was like, no, Zion's the number one and then everything else comes after that. And that's not the messaging that we're seeing from Detroit. So I think that's also something to pay attention to, because if they really wanted to commit and make Cade Cunningham their franchise guy, I think they'd come out and be like, yeah, we really like Cade. We love this kid for reasons A, B, C, X, Y, Z, and that's that. So, yeah.
I think you're right that there's compared to previous years, there's so much smoke. Maybe I didn't pay enough attention because the Rockets weren't having a top pick, but there's so much smoke. I don't remember having this much smoke. Even last year when Edwards wasn't the clear top guy, and we knew Minnesota was trying to trade the pick. I remember them saying during draft night that they were trying to trade the pick, but I don't remember any other draft with this much smoke when there's a clear top guy. And I also wanted to bring up about you saying the precedent stuff. In the drafts that I don't remember, so I'm asking about it. In 2017, was Fultz like the clear-cut number one guy, the way Cade is, or what? And was Doncic the clear-cut better guy over Trae Young?
I think it was. He was considered one, by the vast majority of guys. He wasn't a Cade level prospect, but he was considered one. Yes.
And it was still kind of like the landscape and scenario where I don't think the full, wholehearted shift had been made to heliocentric wings run this thing, unless you're LeBron or maybe James Harden at the time. So I think there was still the stigma of like, oh, this is that athletic big. He's got to go number one. And I remember Trae Young, like when Atlanta traded out of that spot, I remember thinking, oh, wow, that's weird, because I feel like Luka's the guy. Obviously, I think both teams are happy with the trade they made, so it is what it is. But Jackson, what were you saying?
I hadn't actually chimed in a minute, but
I was.
Yeah, that was,
sorry.
Yeah, I'll let you.
Itamar, go for it. Sorry.
I just I think the point that you brought up about if the Detroit is serious, then it shouldn't take much, and if they're not serious, then it's just not going to happen. I think it's a good point. But the one thing I think that needs to be added is the Cleveland aspect, because we don't know what the Rockets prefer. We can assume the Pistons prefer Green and not Mobley, but that's still up in the air. So say the Rockets want to draft Mobley, which is entirely possible, but they also want Cade, then the Pistons could create a bidding war. And in that case, and only in that case, then I think it is reasonable to think that offering a bit more, overpaying a little, is necessary. So I think what you said is true, unless the Cavs are trying really hard to land Cade, and the Pistons are also willing to trade down to 3 as opposed to.
And I think you're right. And I mean, look, Troy Weaver's outside of the box, right? So maybe he is stirring all this shit up to start a bidding war, just to fuck with everybody. It's not impossible. And I mean, we saw we saw last offseason, Detroit seems to like bigs, right? They took Jeremy Grant, Mason Plumlee, whatever. So maybe they are stirring up a bidding war. Ooh, that's an echo. But maybe they are stirring up a bidding war, and they're totally happy taking Jalen Green or Evan Mobley, whoever's available at 3. So I think everything's on the table. I also think, and I think we all agree, that factoring in the fit to your current team is not something we're worried about right now in terms of who the Houston Rockets select. But I do think it's worth noting that Kevin Porter Jr. has had, obviously some behavior issues. And he is extremely direct and vocal about wanting Jalen Green, and Jalen Green seems to feel the same way. And so I'm just guessing. I'm wondering basically, how much is that factoring in to what Houston's decision is? I don't think that they would, God fucking echo. I don't think that they would pass up on Cade based on that. But I do think it's something to consider because, Kevin Porter Jr.'s had those issues and it's pretty well documented. Yeah.
I think
You say.
uh,
You go.
I don't think it should be a concern. Like if the Rockets Justin Green is the second best prospect, and they stay where they're at, and they can feel good about themselves, knowing they're two young guys, like the two stars of the future, really want to play with each other. But I don't think it should be a concern, honestly. And like to me, I don't really like that mindset in general, but I think in this case it is necessary. If KPJ can't handle the fact that the Rockets won't draft his favorite draft prospect, then like maybe he shouldn't get the treatment of a star and be considered as much in front of his decisions. And I don't think it's gonna come down to that. Like to be clear, I don't think it's gonna be a big deal. I mean, clearly he prefers Green, but I mean, I think he knows like it's not that much deeper than just taking the best prospect available. But I don't think it should be a concern because either he gets over it or he doesn't get over it. Then that's a real concern for the future. For the future.
I think you should take it into account if you're deciding between Green and Mobley. I don't think you should take it into account if you're deciding between Green and Cade, because I think the gap's too big. But I do think there's some merit to thinking, hey, we have this really talented guy, and we're really short on talent. So it might make sense if Green is 95% of what Mobley is, and by losing that 5%, you gain 20% on KPJ's, I don't know, being a better player. I think it does make sense to think about it that way. I just don't think. I think the gap between Cade and Green is big enough in a way that you don't care about that part. But I do think it's valid to think about it.
Well, speaking of 5%, we know Tillman's looking for that extra 5%. Which is, I'm just kidding. We won't go down that road. But yeah, I mean, I think we agree pretty much on everything. I will also say before I get out of here and go run me a couple miles, shed a couple lbs, that I heard a discussion, a comparison of Evan Mobley to Anthony Davis, and I want to push back on that. Because Anthony Davis is really lethal out of like the triple threat in the elbow, right? He can get it on the elbow, pivot, fake the pivot, pull up, make his move, make his like little jab step, spin move, whatever. I don't really see that with Evan Mobley. I see Evan Mobley's potential and ceiling being like a tween, not a tween, but like kind of somewhere in between a ball handling big and a wing kind of. If he fills his frame out, he could be Giannis-esque. Maybe not quite there. I think it's difficult to get to what Giannis can do. But he could be something similar to that. But I don't think he's going to be like Anthony Davis, like pulling up off the elbow. I think he's going to have to prove a lot in terms of shooting the basketball to kind of get there. But I'm not out on Evan Mobley, but that's my concern, is whether or not he fills that out. Because if he doesn't fill that out, then I could see him being kind of like a 13-13 guy, or like a 16-10 kind of guy with a couple blocks, So I just wanted to put that out there as well.
On that AD front, I just want to say, right, it is because he had that massive growth spurt in high school, right? So like he was playing, I don't want to say he was playing point guard, but he was playing he wasn't playing center, right? He had the incredible growth spurt and then started playing as a big. So he basically developed as like a guard / wing, and that was his kind of play style. And then there we go, point guard. Yeah, I wasn't 100% sure if it was point guard or
Could
two guard.
he could AD shoot out of college? Like the triple threat stuff that Rush is talking about out of college, was AD that good at it already? Because from where I remember checking highlights, it was mainly a great shot blocker, a great mobile defensive big that had, like, of course, just watching highlights, from what I remember, weren't most of his highlights like defensive plays and putback dunks and dunking on people and stuff.
I mean,
Yeah, I don't know if he will.
also don't know. Yeah, just like a very quick thing. I don't know if I did that or not. I just do know that I do think Mobley, like, is not going to be a post-up guy, but he's going to be a good triple threat guy, like face off, then make a couple move, fade away, or drive, get to his right hook, floater. And to me, like, I just remember knowing that Evan Mobley shot 46% for the mid-range this year, and he like has a pretty quick, like he likes shooting the mid-range shot, and he shot it a really high percentage. So I don't think it's gonna be AD in some senses offensively, but I do think that the face-up plus mid-range, like that, I do think that combo, like they are similar in that facet because both love shooting mid-range shots, and well, Mobley might be even better at it, even if not at the same volume, even if it doesn't shoot at the same volume.
I also wanted to say, in reference to, I think it was Madison talking about the holes in Cade's game. I do agree that the lack of explosiveness is a little bit worrisome, but I will also push back on that by saying that, obviously Luka is the comparison, a heliocentric guy that doesn't have crazy athleticism, but just has crazy IQ and good skill, both passing and shooting in terms of vision and everything, which I think Cade does have. And then also James Harden, I think. Like, Harden has the quick bursts. He's got the quick moves, but his explosion isn't elite. It never really was. He used his body. He used the strength of his actual core and body to kind of bounce people off and, get fouled. And that's kind of how he made his name, because he mixed that with obviously the step back three and all the other skills he has. He has every skill in the book. But the question for me with Cade is whether or not he can develop his body to kind of have that strength. He might have, I don't know what he weighs. I think he's like 215, maybe 220. I'm not sure. He might weigh in the neighborhood of James Harden and Luka, but it's a matter of, in my opinion, whether he can actually get strong enough to just kind of bounce people off of him using his core and using his body. So if he can do that, I mean, I think he's probably the best prospect. I think a lot of people would agree with that, but I've warmed up to Jalen Green over the last, month or whatever since we got the pick. And, like Madison mentioned, the alpha mentality as well. Itamar brings up good points about how, Bradley Beal, Zach LaVine, they don't take you over the top. But I think he's closer to a Devin Booker, who you can see, in big moments can shine and kind of carry a team almost all the way if Chris Paul didn't go full 2019. But yeah, I guess I'll end by saying that we're in a good spot, man. We have the luxury of potentially, we have so many fucking assets that we can get a guy like Cade Cunningham who could be generational and take us to the next level and speed this whole rebuild up. And if that doesn't happen, we could still waste 0 assets and come away with Jalen Green or Evan Mobley, both of whom can also be generational. And then we got Kevin Porter Jr., Christian Wood, the deal. So we're in a good spot going forward. And we don't have Karis LeVert, so I'll end it with that.
Yeah. that's like, I think just hilarious how much Rockets Twitter unites in not loving Karis LeVert, like, at all. He's not a fan.
Nothing unites Rockets Twitter like Karis LeVert not being good or not being that good.
Love that for Rockets Twitter. Roosh, appreciate you taking the time to jump up here, my guy. Always great.
Appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me. Nice to speak with you guys, and carry the rock, man. I'm gonna dip out. So thank you.
All right. We got one more person who's been waiting a minute to talk so patiently. Scrooston, what's up?
What's up, y'all? Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, we got you. What's up?
What's up? Okay, so it's my first time here, so I'm gonna plug some stuff. So, real quick, it's Kristen. I'm on Reddit. I post a lot of highlights. So, if y'all saw that Booker foul yesterday, that was me. That was your boy. I posted that to the NBA subreddit. I post all the Rockets highlights. So yeah. But real quick, the first thing I want to talk about was, for me, Mobley's rebounding is an issue. Now, I'm going to start off by saying I think Mobley's going to be a star. So is Green, but I think Mobley's going to be a star too. But his rebounding is his biggest flaw in my opinion. And the reason why is because his defense is his biggest selling point, but defensive rebounding is key when it comes to, finishing a play. If you can't rebound, then the defense is whatever. So I would like for y'all to touch a little bit on that, like specifically Edomar, because I know he likes Mobley a lot. So how do you feel about the rebounding aspect?
Can I actually comment on that really quick? Just because
sure.
we just did the Evan Mobley breakdown with Ali Khan Bijani on LOR, and a point that Ali Khan brought up talking about Evan Mobley, and one of the concerns, right, for his rebounding is he's what you call a high point rebounder. So he utilizes his height. So that is an area that's concerning, right? You want to see him get better when it comes to boxing out and becoming a better, more traditional rebounder, rather than just relying on his height or his athleticism, because at the next level, right, there's going to be other guys that are simply just going to outwork him for boards if he doesn't, polish up that part of his game. So that's a very legitimate concern, but I still come back to the old adage, right, of you can't teach height, right? You can teach somebody how to box out. You can teach somebody how to be a little bit more aware, of their surroundings, or a little bit more aware of like when a shot's going up to check a body, to get into a low stance, to use your hips to box somebody out. But you can't teach somebody how to be over 7 feet tall. You can't teach somebody how to be that athletic. So I think the rebounding is a slight concern, but I don't think it's something that should be like a glaring concern for Mobley, because he has all of the tools to remedy it. Just needs the right the right coaching put around him.
Yeah, like I think that maybe like if he comes into the NBA and like in his rookie season he stays at roughly the same frame, then he's gonna get bullied for some boards, and it's not gonna look great at times. But I mean, I just can't get myself to be concerned about rebounding of a 7-footer with such a long wingspan and with such a smart player. Like, to me, yes, I mean, it's not I can like say it's not a plus, which like that's a statement I agree with, but like, and he's not like, not gonna be someone like DeAndre Ayton in that sense. But to me, I mean, rebounding obviously very important, but also not that difficult for big guys. Like there's an art to it, and some guys are much better rebounders than others. Some guys like Brook Lopez and Robin Lopez, they are team rebounders, or they just box out, let others grab the board. But like Mobley, I think his defensive impact overall that is gonna be really good, because he's gonna rebound just fine. He's gonna force like so many misses that even if he doesn't rebound them all, just because of the sheer volume of defensive stops, I think he will generate that. Like, I can't bring myself to really be too concerned about the rebounding personally.
If like I also heard Ali Khan talking about him being a high point rebounding. I'm just asking here. That's like what Christian Wood is as well, right? A guy that reaches over other people for the rebounds instead of boxing out. So maybe having two of those guys isn't ideal.
I don't think you should consider Wood like long term. Like, I think like this roster probably not gonna be that the same roster once we are contending or even in the playoffs. And maybe it's not the most perfect fit with Wood, but I don't really care. Like, I think KPJ is someone who should be taken into account because of how good Andy Young is. But other than him, like, I mean, KJ is great, but KJ doesn't affect your team building. And like, I think you just take the best prospect. And Wood, I love Wood, but I mean, I don't think you have to think about the fit too much. And I do think the fit is like fantastic, because he can cover like which targets covering, for example, perimeter player sometimes, and Mobley can do that. All the players, I think they complement each other well overall, even if not perfectly like on the rebounding side. They are two bigs after all though. And offensively, I think they work well, and I just don't think overall the fit between them is something to really think about before drafting. Because, I mean, we'll be fine. Like maybe for 2 years the fit isn't great, then we just move on. Like,
Yeah, you're right. I kind of brain farted a little bit and thought about fit again. Like I sometimes I forget that even me I'm like behind trading wood. So you is there something else we want to talk about, or are we moving on to
Yeah,
the
I have
policy that Marty did yesterday?
I just
You
had a
can go. You
couple
can go.
quick. Yeah, I just had a couple quick points. So yeah, the rebounding is definitely a great point. I know that what Edomar was saying about we don't care about fit. That's true. We don't care about fit, and everything is like he did say. You can always teach, or you can always be okay with a 7-footer with long wingspan. But look at Miles Turner, right? Miles Turner is like one of the worst rebounders we've ever seen for someone with his measurables, and Pacers fans are continue to berate him for his lack of rebounding. So I definitely think you have to have some skill in rebounding. You have to box out, but it's not a huge concern. Now, another thing that I've been seeing a lot of lately is trading. This might be surprising, but trading KPJ, and people are
What?
saying, especially on the Rockets subreddit, that KPJ's value is pretty high right now. The reason it's high is because, he came off that 50-point game, and people are saying he's too volatile moving forward. Now, it's not a huge discussion point for a lot of people, especially on like Twitter, but on Reddit, it is. And a lot of people, I don't know where his value lies, right? It's all over the place because of his personality issues and whatnot. For me personally, I think I view KPJ even this early on as your lottery ticket, right? To win in the modern NBA, to win a championship, you have to get lucky. It's just the way it is. You have to get lucky that the guys you draft turn into stars, and their end of their rookie deals align with people who you bring in who are veterans or borderline all-stars or stars. So I think we should really go all in on KPJ and hopefully hope that he pans out rather than trying to get as much value on the dollar as we can for him now. But I want to know, like,
I mean,
how you guys value
yeah,
him.
the only thing I have to say about that is that Reddit is a cursed place, and like, why would you want to trade
Listen.
KPJ?
I saw
Like,
that
I
too.
don't know. I
I
mean,
saw
to me,
that
like,
too, but it's more of like one or two people saying that, and I think he got massively downvoted too. So, uh, wait, let me see if I can find the post.
I did see
Like
people saying that you couldn't top 15, 10 pick right now.
I
And
mean,
I
the
don't
dude has a
I don't know about that.
22% upvote rate, so the dude has a 22% upvote rate. So yeah, I don't know if that's a lot of people. Yeah, the
All
first
right.
5 comments are not positive. I guess some people might think that, but I don't think we should trade him whatsoever. I don't think he's peaked whatsoever. I think with the strip club stuff from last year, people still have doubts about him. His inconsistency, like shooting, people will still doubt about it. I think he has 2 years left of his rookie deal and is still restricted. I really like his situation because I truly believe he can become a max player, but I do think it won't be next year. So if we can sneak in an offer, like an extension offer for like, I don't know, 18, 20 million, he might accept it and he'll still have a lot of upside next year, you know? So
Yeah,
I think
he's
I
still
really
so
like him as
young.
an asset. Yeah, I really like him as an asset because of that.
All right.
I don't think we should trade him.
Yeah, me neither. I mean, I just think people don't realize how young he is. He's been in the league for a couple years now, and he's gone through so much shit, right, while being in the league. And people don't realize how young he truly is. I mean, if you look at his age compared to other prospects, he's only like a year or two older than a lot of people who are in this draft. So, I don't know. I don't think you give up
Yeah,
on that,
to
but
begin
that's just me.
to begin the season, I compared him to Jalen Green in the sense that I used to think that before looking too deep into Green, I used to think that if you took KPJ's stats out of the G League and you place them next to Green in the draft as a 20-year-old with his stats out of the G League, he would go top 4. But that's probably a bit questionable. Like, if you ignore the attitude issues, I think he's that good. I think his ceiling is that high. So I don't see any world where a team even thinks of overpaying us for him. I think he's one of those flyers that the ceiling is so high, you quit when he's 25 if he hasn't developed anything. I don't think you do anything beforehand.
Yeah, that's definitely. Hey, go ahead.
Itamar, are you there?
Yeah.
You wanna jump into the polls and stuff?
Yeah, sure. Just posted about it right now. I think like every poll got like 700 votes, either more or just around that number, which like it's really good. So the top 5, like I mean, I've already shown you the results, but I think the top, like I expected Sherman finished at the first place, like by far. We got 169 points for me, like based on the way I calculated these results, and like that's 16 more than every other player. But the interesting thing to me is that like JT4 finished second, which I mean, like people have had him in the second round or undrafted kind of all year long, and he really jumped towards the end. Like once people realized how well he was playing, once Sharif Cooper got healthy, and how impressive he's been, like just his highlights are amazing, and the potential he has is really limitless, like for a role player at least. So he's second. The top 5 rounds up with Kai Jones, Zaire Williams, and Keon Johnson. Um, just like to me, a lot of these guys, it's unlikely that they'll be available. So what I like seeing is that Treman and JT4, like the top 2 here, those are 2 guys who will likely be like at least one of those guys I expect to be available at 23 and 24. And the fact that they finished at the top 2 of like the 22 prospects that I used, like what if you perhaps you didn't follow what I did, just I pulled 22 prospects, and so like there were 4 options. There were how would you feel if the Rockets drafted that certain prospect? One option was I'll be ecstatic, or I'd be pretty good, I wouldn't like it, or it would be a horrible pick. So for and the prospects were like the other than the top 4, Kuminga, Barnes, Wagner, Giddy, Moody, Sengun, Garuba, and Jalen Johnson. I think those were the guys I didn't include there. Other than that, it was basically the top 22 guys that I think could be considered for that pick. So also what another thing I want to point out here is that Sharif Cooper finished 6th, and I think he's someone we could discuss because he's a really polarizing prospect. I mean, some people are high on him, some people, like to me, are on the lower end. I mean, he's a basketball genius, CP3-like. He's, in that sense, great passer, smart player, uses great manipulation for his passes, um, great handle. He is athletic, he gets to the rim at an insane rate, but he also doesn't really shoot, doesn't really defend. And the most concerning part, I mean, so far, based on what I've said, you could say, oh, he's kind of Ja Morant, because those like that's very similar the way they're fast, handled, great passers, not much defensively or shooting wise. But the biggest thing for me is that Ja Morant coming into the league immediately had a great floater that he killed teams with, and Sharif, even though he's like 6 feet, he has no floater at all. And I just am really concerned seeing how he scores at the NBA level in a way that is respectable, that's going to keep his passing options open. Like the thing about Sharif, I do think he has one of the highest settings for maybe the absolute highest setting for every guy you could draft at 23. But he has to improve on so many things that, to me, like, I would rather draft. I believe that just based off how deep his draft is, there will be two guys available that I'd rather draft over him. But I'm curious to hear your thoughts and really some other guys, because Sharif is just like one prospect that I'm really interested in hearing about.
Yeah. In my opinion, like, first touching on the JT Thor thing, I think it's weird because JT Thor, like, he was one of the first guys that worked out with the Rockets, so a lot of people went and watched his highlights first before they watched other prospects, and there's certainly a factor of, okay, I went and watched his highlights, and then a lot of people started working out with the Rockets, so I didn't watch as much highlights from the other people. So I'm high on JT Thor because I love these highlights. I also think there's a factor. I think the name is a factor. Like, people might think I'm stupid for saying this, but I do think in people's minds it does, like, play a bit of a factor. And also the fact that we had Christian Wood, who's kinda like JT Thor in the way that he's a really slim, athletic, big, who you could easily mistake for a wing if it wasn't for his size, that can shoot, and that, it's a similar prospect. So I think since we had Wood all season, people are higher on that type of player, and so I think that's one of the reasons he's that high. I think about Sharif Cooper, like I said earlier, I'm really low on prospects that can shoot, and Cooper's one of those. And if he's a guard, even more, especially after we just had Russ, and we know what happened with that, with his shooting struggles. I think if his comparison is CP3, I don't think CP3 worked because he was a good defender, and because he could punish teams from the mid range and from three. If Cooper can only really finish at the rim, and he doesn't even have a floater, I feel like he's going to be really easy to plan for. So it just feels one dimensional to me. Don't think that he'll ever work in the NBA. I know a lot of people are really high on him. He's like my sixth guard that might be available at 23. I'd rather have Springer. I'd rather have Butler. I'd rather have Christopher. I'd rather have Trey Mann. I'd rather have, I don't know. There's a lot of them that I have over him, mainly because he can't shoot, and the guard that can shoot usually doesn't work out. So yeah, I'm really low on him too. I don't know if maybe we are on the right mix on this topic because we're both really low on him.
I mean, like, his handed, his passing is like so good. I think if you got such an outlier skill at those like levels of draft, then you gotta consider at the very minimum drafting him. But he's just so limited at everything else that it hurts, really. Another two prospects that I think it was very the position was very interesting is that Cam Thomas, he finished 11th out of the 22 guys I polled, which I think is really high. And Walker Prakin, I think that's how you say his name. I don't not too hard to pronounce it exactly. He finished 17th, and to me that's kind of crazy because I have him too on my personal board. I think he's a crazy sleeper, but they're like those are the two guys I was also interested in talking about because, like, Cam Thomas to me is, I mean, I think the rating which he got to the line is really impressive. He's got some real shot making tools, and he doesn't turn it over, which, I mean, those are all good indicators. But the man shoots everything. No real other way to say it. Like, his trigger, I mean, for a player like who shoots so much and doesn't really pass and doesn't project to be any good defensively, just so hard. in my opinion, to be a good NBA player in general. I mean, you can bring up Lou Williams, so that's a good guy to bring up, but Lou Williams was like the best playmaker on the Clippers while he was there with Kawhi and PG, and even before that, like when Gala was there. Lou Williams is a good passer, is a pretty good playmaker, especially out of pick and roll. And Cam Johnson, in my opinion, has to take major strides there just to reach that level. And you never hear Lou Williams being talked about as a good playmaker because he isn't really that good for a point guard at all, and it's just above average for a shooting guard. And with Rocco, I think like I like to bet on smart guys in the draft, guys who like good passers, high IQ players who have shown a lot of potential. And Walker Perkakin is the youngest player in the draft. Good passer and really impressively athletic. Like he dunks on everybody. He has insane confidence. Can shoot a little bit. Has good defensive footwork. So to me, those two guys should like I would obviously if it were my board, I would change the placements up. But I was curious also, what do you think on like who are some of the guys who, in your opinion, should not be like where they are at the final results right now?
First off, I don't know if Jackson can hear us, but if you can, if you could bring Don up to the stage, yes. I don't know if I know Jackson is busy right now, so whenever you can do that, I'd appreciate it. About what you asked me, I mean, let me go back to the list. I think like about Cam Thomas. Don, are you here?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
I'm on my earbuds, so I don't know how it's gonna work, but make the
Can
best of it.
you
I think
do
you're
you know
good
where the
enough.
mic is? You're kind of far from the mic.
No, I don't know where the mic is. Hold on. How's that sound?
That sounds better.
Oh, that's better.
Okay, I'll do it like that.
All right. So we were talking about Cam Thomas. I just don't think like I think his bust potential is so high. Like I don't think you'll ever draft a guy at 23 that you expect to be your go-to guy ever. And if he's not the go-to guy, there's no point having him on the floor because he's not good at anything else. And even at that, he's not elite enough for you to give him the ball to do stuff. So it's one of those guys like, if you were going to take him, why not take Draymond instead? Or why not take like literally any other guard instead? Like I feel like there's enough talent that someone will drop, and if there's no other guards available, that means someone from other positions, either a wing or a big, has fallen, and you should just take them. I don't think he should be like, for me, he wouldn't be in consideration at all. Then, in my opinion, like to me, Chris Duarte would be a lot lower because I don't think we should be drafting a player that old. I think we should, within reason, aim for upside. And Duarte is 24 years old, so I don't know. It seems like the kind of guy you pray goes before your pick, so someone else falls, because he doesn't really fit your timeline, and a lot of the teams afterwards will want him. So I don't really like drafting guys that old unless you're already trying to make the playoffs or contending. Like I loved what's his name? The guy that went to the Grizzlies, the power forward.
Brandon
That was
Clark.
also Brandon Clark.
Brandon
That
Clark.
was also old coming out of the draft. Like I loved him for the Rockets because the Rockets were contending back then. So yeah, I'm really confused about what some of these guys are doing here. Like I have other guys that could, I guess maybe I don't know, like Isaiah Todd, JRE, Kessler Edwards. I'm really not that high on these guys. I don't think like they'll be drafted top 23. I remember with Don we kind of started working on a big board, and I had 26 guys that I would be really happy drafting, and like they were 26, so we're guaranteed to have two guys at 23 and 24 that I would be ecstatic drafting. So I really stopped looking into these further like less known guys towards the bottom. About Rocco that you talked about, I know you love him. I don't know. I feel like he's probably not even going to be there for us. If he is there, we should probably take him. But I still like the appeal of, I don't know, Trey Murphy or one of the bigs that will likely fall. Like, let me get the list back up. Like there's just so many guys that if he falls, I guess you have to take him because the upside is that good. But he's not one of my like favorite guys. I feel like he's the type of guy that there's in every draft where he's the favorite of a couple of draft people, and those guys he isn't that to me this year. I have other guys in his place as my personal favorites, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I mean, Walker is. I mean, he's very raw right now. That's like obvious. He's he probably not gonna contribute like to winning from his rookie year. But I think the Rockets are positioned in a way where it wouldn't matter. Because I mean, you just look at the teams that are drafting at these spots. So say he last passed the lottery, so like past the top 16, or even just past the lottery. You got the Wizards who are trying to win now. You got, I mean, the Thunder are an option, but other than OKC, uh, Memphis is trying to make the playoffs. The Knicks are trying to make the playoffs. Dallas, the Lakers are trying. Like, so I think because is a guy who's gonna take time to develop. If he just lasts past the lottery, there's a good chance he'll be available for us. To me, that's a steal. One guy I also found his positioning very interesting is Bones Highland. We already talked about him previously, one of our previous green room. I don't know how you call it, rooms, pods,
Yeah.
whatever. Um, I think he also needs to be higher than 14th here because the shooting upside is too real, and he can pass a little bit. His length, like he's long enough to be respectable enough defensively. I feel like he's gotta be. I mean, to me, if I came around on him because I was kind of down, but looking just purely at shooting, like I wouldn't be upset if we drafted him at all. I don't know if I will win the situation where he's one of my favorite two guys, but the way really how valuable shooting is, how long he can pass. Like he's also kind of a smart player. Reminds me of Quickly a lot. I think is someone who should be higher. Um, One guy also that I thought was interesting is Jaden Springer. Personally,
Ooh,
I
actually,
expected him to be higher.
uh, I have
Yeah,
some thoughts on Highland real quick. Um,
yeah. Go ahead.
uh, so I thought his finishing was pretty good. I was kind of questionable against the competition because a lot of it was like A10 and like some other lower level competition. But I thought overall he was a decent shooter. His first step was it was pretty good and it was pretty effective. And he was able to kind of like get to his first step, but it wasn't like super fast. Like a lot of people have kind of talked about Highland as like someone to bring in if we were to take someone else other than Jalen Green, right? And I think using that as the way of looking at it, a lot of the way I was looking at Highland, he did have a lot of mid-range stuff that I thought was pretty good. And then I thought defensively, I heard a lot of people say he was really good defensively. I saw like a little bit of gambling and his lateral mobility to kind of like recover to guys if he did get beat once he gambled was a little suspect, but those are kind of my main takeaways from him. He was a really intelligent defender. I think you kind of spoke to. He's like a basketball IQ guy. That's kind of how he's able to stick around because he's not a big physical tools guy. But those are just some of my thoughts on Highland.
I mean, the thing is, if you're drafting him, Sorry, I'm back. About Highland, like, I feel like I wouldn't be sad if we ended up drafting him, but I feel like if we are drafting him, I feel like there's going to be another guy that I have higher than him that's going to fall past us. So I don't know. I don't know if after this, I think a good exercise we could do is I could pull up my 26 guy list that I told you, and you could tell me how many guys you'd take Highland over to see like if because I feel like these guys like Highland, Todd, McBride, Primo, I feel like these guys won't even like be in question because I feel like there's going to be guys a tier above, at least for me, that will likely be available, so you won't even think about it.
I think if Man
That's
or
where I
Murphy
disagree with
drop,
you.
I would take them over most of these other types of guys that we've been rattling off in the last like 2 minutes or so. I'm higher on those two than most of this group.
I mean, where I disagree with you is grouping Highland with those guys. I think he's clearly above them, which is, I guess, where I disagree. I do agree that, like, I don't think we'll reach a spot where he's my pick, but I'm saying, like, mostly regarding the polls where he finished, I think, 16th out of 22 guys. Like, no, he finished 14th, like behind Josh Christopher, Chris Duarte, Cam Thomas, Isaiah Jackson. I mean, I do think he should have finished higher. That's kind of my argument with him because I don't like. I think
Could you say who's the top 10 that you took out that you said they have no chance of making it to our pick? You said you started
okay,
it.
yeah.
So
Okay.
I know who is missing here, you know.
Yeah, I understand. You got the top 4 of the draft. Josh Giddey, Moses Moody, Jalen Johnson, Usman Garuba, Alperen Sengun, Franz Wagner, and Scotty Barnes, and Kuminga. I don't think I'm missing anyone other than them.
All right, so out of those guys, let me...
Did you say Book Night?
Yeah, Book Night was not there.
Oh, Buchner, yeah, Buchner is another one. Well, I didn't have that.
Yeah, I think he's going pretty early.
Like you said...
That's roughly what I would have as
guys?
the tier that's not going to drop as well. The guys you rattled off, that's about who I have in the first group.
What I meant is, you said 12 guys. If you had Book Night, that's 13 guys. So if you take the first 10 of your list, that's already gotten you to 23. So if you take out the first 10 guys, or the first 9 guys, because the 23rd pick also counts, I'd take Isaiah Jackson over him. I'd take Josh Christopher over him.
Wow.
I mean, Mitchell isn't there, and if he falls to 23, I'd hate to have to pick him.
Oh, Davion Mitchell too. Yeah, he's another guy.
Okay, so then the list
goes
and
Corey Kispert. Yeah.
Oh, so the list now goes down to 7. So I'd take Trey Murphy and Butler over him any day.
Yeah, I think that's...
As you can see, like, the guys you took out before.
What about Zaire Williams?
Yeah, the guys you took out.
Zaire Williams.
Williams is in the poll though.
Okay. Yeah, he's 4 of him.
Yeah, exactly. So if you, as I said, if you left out 15 guys, which means only the top 5 here will not be available to us in theory. And if you take out the top 5 guys, Springer, Murphy, Butler, Isaiah Jackson are all above Highland. So that's what I mean when I say, to me, it doesn't really matter that he's 14th, because I don't think he'll even be in consideration because there's so many guys above him, you know?
Yeah, we don't really know, like, who the Rockets did value, but I do agree that there are going to be 2 prospects that I think are better than him and would rather pick. So Jaden Springer is another guy who I thought interesting. I thought it was interesting that he didn't finish higher. 7th is high, but like, to me, Springer is 2 here. So Walker is Springer is 2 for me. I would rather take Walco over Springer if we already have men. But if we're just looking for the best prospect available, like to me it's men than Springer. Uh, Springer just to me is like it reminds me of Marcus Smart with his defense and some of that, but also of Tate offensively. So to me, and he's also like I think the second youngest or the third youngest player in the draft. So I'm all in on gambling on youth here. So to me, if someone like Springer or Walker or really other players, they've shown enough promise and are really young, then I think there's a good chance they'll still be available because the teams before Houston will be drafting for win now purposes. And I just think the Rockets are really going to go with a great haul at 23 and 24, really just naming the guys who are going to have to be available just because there are only like 22 guys that go in front of where Houston picks. So like even thinking about it, I'm even becoming more reluctant like to think about trading up higher because to me there is a group of like seven prospects who I would want to trade up for, which is the top four. I think Giddy, Moody, and Kuminga. I think that's it. And to me, those other guys are at the same level, like of everyone else. So I'm just like at the start, I was down that the Rockets only got 23rd pick and not didn't get the 21st pick like they could have. But I don't even think it's gonna really matter here just because they're going to have a great selection of guys available to them.
Yeah, and the guys that went like the teams that went above us are the Lakers and the Knicks. So I don't maybe the Knicks take a guy away from us that we wanted, but I don't think the Lakers are going to take a guy that we wish we would have. I think they'll go for a more win now guy. You listed
Yeah,
some
for
people
sure.
you would trade up for. Outside of the top four, which is obvious, and Kuminga, which is obvious, and Barnes, which is obvious.
No, actually, Bouncy, I'm
You wouldn't?
starting to think. I don't know, the more I read about Barnes, I'm not sure on his defense. I'm not sure on his offense. I had Book Knight
I'm
the
not
list
high
of
on him
guys I
either,
would
to
trade
me.
up. But I don't know. I mean, I think I had Barnes on my original big pool high, mostly because of consensus. But like
Yeah.
the way I'm starting to think about really what is good at, what is not good at, it's gonna be a struggle until he gets to be a legitimately good rotational player in this league, like an elite role player, like he could be. And to me, that kind of scares me. And I think I'd rather take like someone like Book Knight over him. Someone like Franz, I think I would rather have, and maybe even Usman. Like I have to think about it. But so I don't know about Bounce, but the list of guys is the top five, like you said: Book Knight, Moody, and Giddy.
To me, the list is a little bit bigger. I'm also not a fan of moving up because I think you can take two shots at two players on the same level, most likely. Um, I'm also not too high on Barnes. To me, since all the way back when I started looking into prospects, he always looked like the kind of guy that is in every draft that's uber athletic but never puts it together and ends up being out of the league in little time. So yeah, I would trade up for Moody. I would trade up for Book Knight. I would trade up for Jalen Johnson. Um, Other than that, I don't think there's many guys I would trade up for besides those ones. Those are like my favorite guys that are probably unreachable
So
for us.
those are
I
who
don't
you would
know
try to
about
take if we got
Keon.
to 13,
Yeah, if we could
or
trade
you
up
mean
to
higher
get
than
them,
that?
I don't like if the question is if you had a deal for whatever pick and that's the
Yeah.
guy that's available, um, do you trade up for that guy?
I
I
think,
mean,
yeah, I
I
think
think
I'm probably out on
yeah, go
Barnes
ahead,
as
go ahead.
well. I'm probably out on Barnes as well. In a trade up situation, I think the question on him is the shot. That's what I've been hearing a lot lately. Is he going to be able to put it together shooting wise? Someone I was listening to yesterday called him the inverse of Cade, and they said Cade is mostly a shooter, which I've seen Cade do a lot of other things as well as I've been watching a bunch of tape on him. Yeah, Book Knight I would be interested in trade up situation. Keon Johnson probably interested in. Moody,
I I I want to stop you
Giddy,
there because
Jalen Johnson. Yeah,
I think like I'm not there with Keon at all. I have been like 18th, 19th on my board. I don't really see it with him. Like he also finished top 5 on my board personally. I mean, he's crazy athletic. The highlights with KJ would be incredible, really. But to me, it's just so much of a project right now. I mean, his shooting may come along, may not. The handle is very, very concerning. The passing
yeah,
ability is not really there. I mean, the defense is good, but he's 6'4", and you're talking about defense and athleticism as like his main two assets, but plus maybe shooting and not doing much else. I mean, for a guard, that's just not good. And for a wing, you can live with it, but it's going to be really undersized. So I'm kind of out on him as well, like with Scotty, because I I don't really see a skill that like other than the athleticism, which is really impressive that I should bet on, like being really really good at the NBA level, and or just being like good at many stuff, and that kind of concerns me a little with him.
I'm also like he also falls under the category of he can shoot and he's not elite everywhere else. So it falls into the kind of prospect that I don't like, the whole Orlando Magic stuff. Like I'm usually not really into guys that are uber athletic and can't shoot if they have other holes in their game besides shooting. Because if they have, they're going to be a role player, and even becoming a role player will like be a struggle, in my opinion. Don, you were talking about the guys you trade up for.
yeah. So that group. I don't know if I would trade up for Garuba, but he's definitely someone I'm also very high on. I'm going through a bunch of clips on him right now. And then after that, I think there's kind of a drop off, like kind of what Pro was talking about. I think if we can get to 13 with an Eric Gordon trade, I don't think that's like a let's say we made that trade independently of trying to trade for Cade, right? So we just do the trade for Eric Gordon to Indy to 13. I think that is a pretty good shelf where I don't think we need to trade up much higher than that, and we could really get someone that would be an impact player. I think like a Jalen Johnson, a Garuba, Zaire Williams. I think one of those types of guys is going to be there at 13 for sure. I think that's really the ceiling where we need to get to be able to get someone. I don't think, moving up back into the top 10 is necessarily something we'd need to do. But yeah, those are probably my trade up guys.
What are you assuming as the Eric Gordon trade? Because I hear a lot of people saying 23 plus Eric Gordon, but I'm more on the. I think Rob Kimball just tweeted this out. To me, if that trade ever happens, I think people are misunderstanding the rumor, and I think it will end up being 23 and 24 and EG for 13. And I'd still do that if I were the Rockets.
I would
Uh,
still do that as well. I think, like you were talking about earlier, like the consolidation point, and I know I've been a big proponent of consolidation for a while, especially with these picks that, they're not super premier picks. Like I'm very high on 2023 draft. I'm very high on a few guys in the 2022 draft at the very top, and I would prefer to move the picks like the ones we have later in this draft or that the Heat Nets swap for next year, things like that. If we could use those more fringe assets to move up and consolidate, I think that's the way to go because I don't think I want to try to be consolidating with picks we have, in those outgoing Nets years or R2 picks in the next 2 years. Like I think those are the ones we're going to want to sit on at
yeah,
least for the immediate future. So I think those two picks in an Eric Gordon trade, I think that would make a lot of sense for me.
I would like that. That makes sense for me mostly. It's real quick, mostly because I want to get rid of Eric Gordon to open up minutes for other people. That's the main reason. It's not about, to me, the main attraction is getting rid of Gordon rather than the 13th pick, because I do agree we should consolidate assets, but I don't think this is the draft to trade up. I think there's way too many guys in the same tier. Even like I could name 13 guys that could go before 13 that would leave no one else I would like to trade up for,
Yeah.
Like,
I want to point out one thing on this is, for a lot of Rockets fans, right, this is our first time really doing a bunch of draft coverage, right? Really doing a bunch of draft in-depth analysis, or watching a lot of tape, a lot of film, and really getting familiar with these guys. And I think we don't have, as Rockets fans, as good of a grip on like how the draft process goes a lot of the times, because if we had been doing this year over year over year, I feel like there'd be a lot of times where it would be like, oh yeah, I'm just in love with all of these guys from 9 to 30 and all these things, and then we really haven't like banked hard on those prospects and had a lot of them not work out. Because like, if you look at a team like the Celtics, right, the Celtics had a lot of those type of non-peak picks kind of coming out of after they got Brown and Tatum, and they missed on a lot of those guys. And I just don't know how much of it is this is our first draft cycle, and it's like there's potential everywhere, and we really haven't gotten burned on. Some of these guys may not pan out, even though they have great potential.
That
So
definitely makes a lot of sense.
That's my impetus for consolidation, right? Like if there's a guy like for that, the Cade situation is a perfect example. Cade is a very high floor guy, and he's a guy where his baseline level is more of a sure thing than probably Mobley or Green is anyway. And so for me, there's a threshold of if you can get someone who's safer, and y'all kind of talked about this with the Keon Johnson just a minute ago. Keon Johnson is a very risky player, right? Like a lot of upside with the athleticism and things like that, but you never know how he's going to develop. He may make a crazy shooting leap, right? Like we don't know, but those kind of cut both ways. So if you can get to a player where it's like this guy has a very solid baseline, his median projected outcome looks a lot higher than guys we would get in the next tier down. We don't have to bank as much on improvement on this guy. I think that's where I see the value in consolidating and moving up.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of guys in this draft that apply to what you just said, that will likely be available. I think you're not banking too much on upside when you think about Garrett Butler, or when you think about Trey Mann, or when you think about Trey Murphy.
Garuba, for example, I think he has pretty solid defensive baseline.
Yeah, I think I can see like us not being into the draft too much before, and this being our first Rockets year, having to the draft being a factor. But I also think last year was the first year I was really deep into the draft, because I was running some mock-off seasons, so I needed to be like up to like actually following stuff. And I know last year was a weak draft, so maybe that's not the best comparison, but I was high on a really low amount of guys past the top 10. Like, past the top 10, I liked Kira Lewis. Let's not count Halliburton, because that's a fluke that he should have been top 10. I was high on Maxey. I wasn't high on Bay, surprisingly. And I was high on like literally no one else. So, and I was high on Desmond Bain. Like those were the only three guys I liked out of the group of guys from 10 through like 40. And this year I can name like 20, 25 guys from 10 through 40 that I would be really happy to draft.
I'm going back to the last year's draft and see who I was interested in.
Yeah,
I didn't like the
this
Obi
draft
pick. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that this draft is just, I do feel like it's really, really deep, in that there are like kind of 28 guys that I would love seeing the Rockets draft, or that I think are good bets to be rotation players. It's also funny because every time you do a mock draft, like for example, someone like Jaden Springer is someone who every time like I'm starting to do it in my head, I'm like, okay, nobody falls down to Houston. Gotta take him earlier. He's so good. And then you see how many other great guys there are in this draft that he falls like nearly every mock draft I see, or someone else really good for. So like the Rockets, I mean, are gonna have a great selection of guys to pick at 23 and 24, and that really seems like to me it was the right draft this is the right draft to invest in. Like I've seen a fake trade proposed by a Nets fan, which included dumping DeAndre Jordan and the first round pick and trading it for Daniel House, for example. Like that would be a trade I'd be all over. As much as like I just think you should go all in on this draft, on these next couple of drafts as much as possible. Build your team, have the same timeline, like go their way. And if your team picks at the right time, I think that's what you're looking for because you're looking at teams that have won the championship recently. The best players all peaked at the right time. Like you look at the Suns this year, they were the same timeline plus Chris Paul. And the Bucks, Giannis and Chris have been together forever, and they're both now at the peak of their game. So to me, if you could buy on this draft and get as many good prospects this draft and next in this draft and next draft and bid from there, to me that's the right way to go.
Yeah, and like I'm sorry to kind of cut you off. Jackson will need to use his phone for something like in 10 minutes, so we should probably wrap it up. Like let's say just so it doesn't end abruptly, really quick. If right now, if you had pick 23 and 24, and like none of the major, like you had to pick two guys out of the list that was in Itamar's polls, which two would you pick? I'll start while you think. I'd pick Trey Mann. I'm really torn between Trey Mann and Springer, but I'd pick Trey Mann and I'd pick Trey Murphy. Those would be my two picks right now.
Don, what do you think? Who do you got?
I would definitely like those two guys. Y'all said that Zaire Williams was in the polls, right? I'm trying to
Yeah,
find
he
it.
is.
Yeah,
I would be comfortable with
just look
Williams
at my
as
page.
well. Any combination of those three, to be honest, Williams, Mann, and Murphy, I'm pretty high on. I don't think
All right.
those are a reach at that stage either. I think probably realistic, or if not a realistic, then a drop to get to that point. So I don't think.
Yeah, I
Yeah, I
think
would be
at least
comfortable with
one of
either
them
three of
will
those.
drop almost for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You,
Zaire
Itamar?
is someone I'm really high on because I mean he had a bad year at
Okay,
Stanford, but
here
he
we go.
reminds me a lot of Jaden McDaniels. And I mean, this his shooting plus defense projection, his handle needs work, but he's also like kind of athletic. Um, I like I like him a lot, but my two would be from this poll would be Treman and Walker. And but I think it gets more interesting to me if you've gotta go for two guys who are, say, you look at the results and they're not in the top five. Which two guys would you pick? I think that's
Okay, I
like
see
a
the
much
list
more
now.
interesting.
Let me go
So
back
I
If I had
again.
think
to
Okay.
pick two guys that
I
weren't
would
in the
have
top five, I'd probably be picking Springer and Jackson.
that's interesting. I would have Springer and Rocco. I feel those two are kind of cheating because I don't think they should be there. If not, then like maybe Jared Butler and Trey Murphy. They are
Yeah,
the two guys that
that was what I was about to say. If you took out the top five and Jaden Springer, my two would be Trey Murphy and Jared Butler. Yeah, so let's wrap it up before Jackson starts yelling at us or something. Okay. Thank you guys for hanging out with us today. It was really fun. We've been here for
yeah.
like 2.5 hours already, so time flies when you're talking basketball. I don't know if you guys have anything else to say.
Yeah, check.
Yeah, I
You know,
just put
this
out.
will
Oops, sorry. Go ahead, Itamar.
yeah, I'm just saying this will be uploaded to YouTube for Locked on Rockets, and I might upload it to my channel as well. So be on the lookout for that. Follow us Mine is DGC, Prodigy, and Jackson Don. Yeah,
Oh, and be sure to stay tuned. We might run a little special thing on draft night for you.
Yeah. So real quick, I put out a video yesterday of Cade shot creation clips, and then I just put out one 5 minutes ago about Cade's post game. I'm probably gonna try to do some more clips of some of these more type of guys that are like at the 13 to 24 range. I've only done the top three guys so far: Cade, Green, and Mobley. But yeah, I've had a lot of fun doing that. So if y'all want to check those out, they're on my page at Don Knock. Yeah, thanks for bringing me on, guys. Thanks for everyone that showed up and listened and contributed.
All right. Well, now we all leave, and Jackson's here alone until he realizes that we all left.
yeah.
Sounds
Goodbye.
good. Adios, guys.